because together we can do amazing things.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. Good evening and welcome wherever you are all around the world. My name's Paul Goddard and I'm a licensed immigration advisor with Working In. I'll be hosting this webinar for you this evening. It's going to run for about 40 minutes and it's going to be very much focused on how to secure a job offer and visa for New Zealand, hence the title. I'm also going to introduce you to my colleague Daryl Quinn. Now, Daryl's over in Auckland. Daryl, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody. So I'm the General Manager of Contracting within Working In, based in Auckland, New Zealand. So right now it's 8:03 a.m. So yeah, wherever you are in the world, welcome evening or morning.
Brilliant. Cheers, Daryl. And yeah, and for those of you who don't know, I'm actually based in the UK at the moment. So kind of running the UK side of the business things. I lived in New Zealand for 17 years and I'm originally from the UK. And Daryl is a Kiwi, obviously, but also lived in in the UK for years and now back in New Zealand. So a couple of things here that we're just going to touch on through this webinar. Some very basic stuff. We're not going to dwell too much on this because it's not so much job related, but why is it important to use an advisor? The job market in New Zealand, obviously we're going to discuss a bit about that. We're going to show you how to make the move. You know, there's 4 steps that we generally take people through to make a move, and we're going to show you how we can support you through that. And we'll also talk about the people who we can't help, because the reality of this is we can't help everybody. You know, there are people who will find it easier to make the move than other people, and you know, we're very open and honest that we only offer our help and support to people where we know we can add benefit, because there's no point otherwise. So let's crack into that for the first part of this. So Daryl, I mean, obviously you're right at the coalface of this. You know, in New Zealand, you talk to employers in New Zealand all the time. One of the particular roles that you deal with in New Zealand is, you know, we're currently placing lots of truck drivers, for example. So that's a great opportunity. Just as an aside, if there's any truck drivers on this webinar, we're looking for you. We can actually offer you a job and help you move to New Zealand. But as well as the truck driver, Daryl, what is the job market like in New Zealand right now, after the borders were shut for 3 years and, you know, New Zealand's now open and, you know, competing with the rest of the world? What's it look like? What's the future look like?
So I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Paul, that we're competing for skills around the world. We've definitely got a skill shortage in quite a few areas of industry. And in particular, you mentioned the truck driver roles. So that we call them class 5 and class 4s, but over in the UK it's class 1 and class 2s, and various different types of class around the world. But we've got a big shortage, and in 5 years' time, if we don't do anything, if we don't act now, then there's going to be a severity. So we've got to be looking at people from overseas to fill those roles. But in particular, we've got electrician shortages, asbestos, site traffic management, diesel mechanics, and I can go on. So really, if you're on the call and you know, you're looking to make the move, then make contact with us and we can discuss your future and, as we're doing here today, your pathway to get to New Zealand. So we've got a shortage of the skills. We're hunting around the world. So yeah, it's as I said, we've got to move now, because if we don't, then it's going to be too late, and we'll find ourselves in probably a similar situation to a lot of countries around the world. So competition is yeah, it's definitely there, and we can help you fill the skills shortage gap.
Yeah, and I think some people sort of get confused and they think, well, why would New Zealand have a skill shortage? It's a beautiful place to live and surely everybody wants to live there. But, you know, as we know, part of that is people move around the world. You know, Australia's got a skill shortage, so people will go there, and the UK's got a skill shortage, and everywhere's got a skill shortage, you know, and especially after COVID, that's all been sort of emphasized because a lot changed during those COVID years, as we call them, and now immigration policy in New Zealand has changed, and that leads on to something very important. Why should you use a licensed immigration advisor? Well, it should be pretty obvious to most people. Using a licensed immigration advisor gives you safety and peace of mind, because we are actually, as licensed advisors, we're bound by a code of conduct, a very strict code of conduct. As licensed advisors, we have to renew our immigration license every single year, and do continuous professional development. We've got 26, I think now, licensed advisors at Working In. It's one of the largest, if not the largest team in New Zealand. We lodge literally thousands of visas over the year, for all types of visas, all types of occupations, etc. Most people that we're talking to here will be looking at the job offer based visas, and there's been some massive changes to immigration policy around those things. And the other reason that you should use a licensed advisor is, as licensed advisors, we have to be up to date and up to speed with all these changes with immigration policy. We also work very closely with the New Zealand Immigration Service. Working In is also an accredited employer, and we got accreditation from the Immigration Service. So you have to put yourself in safe hands. Don't take advice from people who aren't licensed, to give that advice, because you are putting yourself at huge risk of, getting bad advice or losing lots of money. So it is worth me just touching on a little bit about visas and how they work. And so don't get New Zealand mixed up with Australia. Okay, we do Australia and New Zealand, but Australia and New Zealand have very different immigration policies. With New Zealand, which is what we're talking about here, there's a new green list, and this is what Daryl was just touching on. The New Zealand government has identified a whole bunch of occupations that the government has said, right, we're really short of these occupations. We're going to need these occupations for, potentially years to come. Let's put them on the green list. That can give you a fast track to residence that wasn't there before. There are people who can go for what we call now straight to residence. There's also this employer accreditation that I mentioned. Only accredited employers can offer jobs to people from overseas. So if you're just using your CV and firing your CV off to employers in New Zealand, a lot of the time you're not even going to know if they're accredited or not. And if they're not accredited, what are they going to do? Probably nothing. If they are accredited, they might not engage with you either, because accreditation doesn't require the employer to understand visas. An employer is there to run his or her business. They're not there to be visa experts. And so even if they're accredited, there isn't a requirement for them to understand visas or assist you with visas. They also have to have every role that they want to fill checked and pre-approved by the Immigration Service as well before they can, a visa can be issued for that role. And we can help you through all of this process as we go forward. And I think we're getting into the crux now of why we're here. This whole situation around how difficult is it to get a job offer in New Zealand, or actually, I should probably reword that. Why is it so difficult to get a job offer in New Zealand when you're overseas? Now, Daryl, again, you're right at the cold face with this one. What's your opinion on, when people apply for jobs when they're, thousands of miles away? Why do you think they find it difficult to actually get that offer?
So I think you alluded to it earlier, Paul. We had, before July 2022, 450,000 companies could employ somebody from overseas. But the government decided that needed to be regulated because of unethical companies that were bringing people in from overseas and exploiting them. So that 450,000 companies shrunk to now 27,000 accredited companies. So immediately, the market for people wanting to employ overseas workers has shrunk dramatically.
Yeah.
The other thing is that I've spoken to so many people that get disappointed and think that Kiwis are very rude because we're not responding to their emails with their CVs. And the bitter truth is that what happens if an email comes from overseas and they're not an accredited company, that's going straight into the bin. It literally will not be seen. So forgive us, it's not a case of that somebody's just ignoring you. It's just they don't see it. It doesn't even get that far. Yeah. So trying to apply for a role from overseas is extremely difficult. Even if a company is accredited, they don't know your skill set. they're very cautious because they just don't. It'll be a big expense to them to bring you over from overseas, and for that not to work for them. So they're very, very cautious, and so they'll try and place the roles locally. But if they can't, then a lot of companies in New Zealand are just bearing the gap that they have in their workforce, which is crazy too. So we have a solution for New Zealand clients, for New Zealand employers, and that's through our contracting. So contracting is exactly as it says. It's not labour hire. We bring over the overseas worker. They work for working in New Zealand. We contract them to either unaccredited employers or accredited. It doesn't matter. But the intention is always that they're there as a contractor, but over time they will become a permanent employee for the employer. So and that's working tremendously well for us. It's a very relaxed way of the New Zealand employer bringing in overseas workers, seeing that it works. So we're demonstrating that we are the experts in this field, and we know what we're doing.
Yeah, and obviously we can't do that in all sectors at the moment. You know, there's only certain occupations where we can do that, where we've got permission to do that. So before anyone gets really excited and says, "Oh my God, working in are just going to offer me a job and everything's great," you know, it's only certain sectors. Certainly, truck drivers, we can do that. We've got a health recruitment team to place any health professionals. So any health professionals who are on here, we can actually, you know, potentially place you directly into jobs. A lot of other people will fall into other categories where you will have to put the effort in to get a job offer. And I think what you alluded to there, Daryl, is really important. Employers, people don't realize employers will, of course, they'll always hire New Zealanders if they can, because they should. That's the right thing to do. You know, New Zealand immigration isn't there to issue visas. They're there to protect New Zealanders' jobs. You know, if they're going to issue a visa, make sure that everything's been done to hire a New Zealander first. This is what accreditation is about. And also, you're not only, if you're applying for jobs in New Zealand, are you in competition with New Zealanders, you're also in competition with everybody else around the world who's trying to move to New Zealand. Because guess what? They're also applying for jobs. And this is why if your strategy is simply to look at jobs that are advertised on the internet and send your CV to a job that is advertised on the internet, your chances of success are really small. You're in competition with hundreds of thousands of people. If that job is on the internet, everyone can see it. Everyone can apply for it. This is why a lot of the jobs that you'll see on the internet say you need a visa to apply for this role, or you need the right to work in New Zealand to apply for this role. Quite often that's not put there by the New Zealand employer. It's put there by the job site, which is advertising the role. Because if it wasn't there, that job's going to get flooded with these CVs. The employer's going to pull the job advert. The job site doesn't get paid anymore. You know, it's simple business. And also, the other thing that you've got to remember, and we haven't touched on this so much, is a lot of the jobs that are advertised on the internet are advertised by recruitment agents. A lot of recruitment agents won't touch people from overseas because a recruitment agent wants people who are on the ground in New Zealand, quick and easy to place so they can get paid. Okay. And offshore for a recruitment agent, or most recruitment agents, is too long, too difficult, too risky. And if you're offshore and you've applied to a recruitment agency, your chances of getting that CV through are even slimmer. And so if your only strategy is to fire your CV to a job you see advertised online, good luck. Some of you will get lucky, most of you won't, and most of you will eventually give up. And I think there's another key point that I wanted to touch on. Your CV on its own generally doesn't work because it's not enough. Okay. A CV tells the employer that you can do the job. It shows the employer that you've got the skills to do the job and the experience to do the job. What it doesn't show the employer is if, when, and how you're going to get to New Zealand if they offer you a job. That part's not on your CV. And if you can't show an employer if, when, and how you're going to get to New Zealand and prove it, why would the employer engage with you? You know, what's the point? It's too long, too difficult, too risky. And remember this, if you're not showing the employer if, when, and how you're going to get to New Zealand, somebody else is. And who are they going to go for? The person who's got no idea if they're going to get to New Zealand, or the person who's actually got proof that they've got a visa agent on board, that their documents are ready, that everything's in place, and that a visa can be issued quickly. That's what an employer needs to see, that all of those things are actually in place. And if you try and do all this on your own, you can't really show that to an employer. You certainly can't prove it. You could say to an employer, I'm fully prepared and ready to move. That doesn't mean anything. That just means that you're keen. Employer, by saying, I've got working and system, my visa, my documents are all ready, my visas are all prepared, ready to go. I fully understand what it's like to live and work in New Zealand. They're doing the visas for me. If you offer me a job, a visa could be issued within 6 weeks of lodging an application. That is what you need. That's much better than here's my CV. Okay, so bear that in mind. I can't say that enough to people. A CV on its own generally doesn't work. And the other thing around, not only should you use a licensed immigration advisor, of course, if you have to use a licensed advisor, that makes sense. Should you use an advisor at all, or should you do it yourself? One of the key things to remember when you use an immigration advisor is employers want certainty. And Daryl has said this already. They want certainty. They want to know that everything's going to work and it's all going to be okay. If you are doing your own visa application, so you're not using an advisor, you're not getting advice, you're using Google, you're using the internet to read stuff and figure out how it all works, considering that immigration policy has changed drastically. The biggest changes we've seen in the last 20 years have all happened in the last 12 months. Now, if you're doing it on your own because you think you can, great, that's good on you, fantastic. If you've got the time to do that, I'm not knocking that. But what you've got to remember is, if you do your own visa application, you're asking the employer to trust you. You're asking the employer to put all their faith in you knowing how those visas work and how to get one and how it works. Most employers won't do that. If you have a visa agent doing your visas, you're asking the employer to trust a licensed immigration advisor. That's a much better situation to be in, because it's much easier for an employer to trust a licensed immigration advisor than it is somebody who's doing their own visa. And we see that time and time again. Employers that, offer jobs to our clients and move forward, quite often they're doing that because we're giving them the peace of mind that everything's going to be okay. I mean, how relevant do you think that is, Daryl, in your experience, having that backup of a team of people helping you?
Oh, totally. And it's vitally important for people to know that they've got support when they're looking for a role in New Zealand. Just to add to what you've been saying, Paul, we know the employers, we know who and the skills that they're looking for, and so we know how to present the individual to that company in the best light. So we don't just accept your CV and just send that on to the potential employer. We'll make up a profile, and that profile will introduce you in the best way. If the employer wants to see videos, we'll ask for a video introduction or video of your work, what you do, on a day-to-day basis. It could be pictures. So there's all various things that we can provide and help and support when presenting people to an employer. It's not just as easy as just firing off a CV. It really isn't.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And what you're talking about there, that kind of level of help we give there, that's more around the contracting side of the business, that we're dealing directly with the employer. But I think the good news that people should take on here is, as we said, not everyone can go down that contracting route where we're doing that. But those things, those tools that Daryl just mentioned around, oh, what if they need a video of me, and what if we need to do that? What we do in terms of the people who have to basically go out and get their own job offers, so they're not going down the contracting route, is we show you how to do those things yourself. To put yourself in that best position. So I say this constantly to people as well. If you put aside the contracting route, if you're not going down that route, if you've got to go and get your own job offer, you are the best person to go and get your own job offer, and you have to be prepared to put the effort in and put the work in and do the research and reach out to employers and do that. So from the majority of people we work, certainly in the in my side of the business, people who need job offers in New Zealand, who can't go down the contracting route. We give you the tools to show you how to do it, and we guide, support, and advocate you through that process. In that scenario, we're not going out and getting you a job offer. Of course, if we come across an employer who might be interested, we'll try and make that connection. But with a lot of our clients, we're empowering you to put yourself in the best position to do this, because in that scenario, you are the best person to be interacting with the employer. Trying to think of a good example of that. Say, for example, I don't know, we've got a plumber or something like that who wants a job offer. The plumbing company isn't going to want to talk to me about plumbing. I'm not a plumber. The plumbing company will want to talk to the plumber about plumbing and see what he's done and everything. And so what we do is we'll help that plumber put themselves in the best position with the best tools and the best information, show them how to network, show them how to tap into the hidden job market using LinkedIn and all these other tools. Networking is, in my opinion, and tell me if you disagree on this, Daryl, but if you're trying to get your own job offer, networking is the best way to get a job offer, not firing off CVs. Talking to employers, following people on LinkedIn, chatting on their LinkedIn profiles, making yourself known as a person rather than just a piece of paper. This shows massive effort and commitment by you to an employer. Firing off a CV doesn't show any effort and commitment at all. It takes 30 seconds. If you can research an employer and find out who works there and start there and show them why you want to work for them and why you're a good fit for them, that's how you get ahead of other people. So I think Daryl and I could talk for hours through this. It's such a massive part of making the move, securing the job offer. Without a job offer, the reality is most of you listening to this webinar tonight are not moving to New Zealand. The job offer is the key that unlocks the move. And there is this catch-22. I can't get a visa because I haven't got a job offer. I can't get a job offer because I haven't got a visa. How does anyone move to New Zealand? The people that move to New Zealand go above and beyond and put more effort in than the people who don't move to New Zealand. They pull out the stops. All the people that I've helped over the last 15 years, the ones who are applying for their own jobs with our support, every single one of those people has had loads of rejections before they've got a job offer. Doesn't matter how many people reject you. You just need one person to say yes, and you've got to keep going. The market's constantly shifting, constantly changing. Sometimes there's no opportunity at that place, but then 6 months later, there is an opportunity at that place. You don't just stop and ignore that place because they said no. You keep going back, you keep moving around, you keep following up. And there is a whole strategy around this that we call employment support. But let's break this down a little bit further now into something that we call the 4 steps to move to New Zealand. Now, they sound really simple. Get ready, get a job, get a visa, get on a plane, just like that. If it was that simple, New Zealand would have a population of 65 million people. Daryl wouldn't want to live there anymore, and everyone would be moving to New Zealand. So it's not that simple. There's only 5 million people in New Zealand. So what we mean by this get ready, get a job, get a visa, this is how we break the move down into stages. That first step, getting ready for the move, is so important. If you're not ready for the move, how can you move? Most people jump straight to step 2, get a job offer. They think that that's all they can do. Can't do anything until I've got a job offer. So the first thing I need to do is get a job offer. Wrong. The first thing that you need to do is get ready so that you can get the job offer. Because getting ready for the move doesn't mean, just looking on the internet at pictures of New Zealand like myself and Daryl have got behind us, which are genuine places, by the way, that we've been to. It's not just watching Lord of the Rings and saying, oh my God, look at that place, it's magical, I want to move to New Zealand, which is another thing that a lot of people do. It's about getting information ready, having personalized information about your move. What are the best visa options for you? How do they work? What are the time frames involved? What's it going to cost me to make the move? What are the steps I need to go through? You need a clear plan. And you can only get a clear plan if you've got accurate information about your move. You've got to have your documents ready for the visa, because how can you prove to an employer that you're ready if you're not ready? You know, you've got to be information ready and document ready, and you've got to be able to show that you're ready. Then you can move on to trying to get in a job offer, because you're in a much better position. Once the job offer is secured, it's about getting a visa. There are now multiple ways to get residence in New Zealand. Before, there was only one, maybe two, with the skilled migrant category, which was the main one, the points-based system. That's changed completely. It's now 6 points is what's needed. So that's been flipped on its head. There's now straight to residence, which is that. There's the green list. There's multiple ways now to do it. So a lot of you on this webinar will have multiple options when it comes to visas. Now that might sound great, but it gives you choice. And what happens if you choose the wrong one? You know, you want to know what is the best option for you. Sometimes it's a combination of visas. How's that going to work? This is why you use visa agents. You don't have to understand visas yourself. You just have to know which one's the best one for you, and then use a visa agent to do that work for you and fill out those visas for you and liaise with the immigration service for you. And then when you do finally get on a plane, it's about having that support that we touched on before around your flights and your shipping, and what about your partner and how do they get a job, and what about your kids, and what about their schools, and what about bank accounts. There are so many things to consider in this move. Working in as a company is not here to just do visas. Okay, we have 26 licensed visa agents, but we're not just here to do visas. We're here to get you ready, help give you employment support to help you get a job offer, either by empowering you to do it yourself, which is most people, or going down the contracting route, which is what Daryl's talking about. We do the visas for you, and then we help you make the move and settle and stay. And we work with most people for a very long time through that process. So thinking of the move, just even thinking of the move in that way, is going to put you in a much better position than, oh, I need a job offer, here's my CV. My advice to everyone on this call, if that's what you're doing, stop. Think about it differently. Get in front of us. Let us show you how to make the move. And the first step in that process is actually really simple. It's a very simple step. And the first step in working with us, yes, we charge fees. Of course, we charge fees for what we do. And moving to New Zealand is a lot of money. You're moving to another country, usually on the other side of the world from anywhere, because New Zealand's pretty much at the bottom of the world. And you know, we'll run through you with what the costs are in the move as part of we move forward. But the initial step costs you nothing at all. Literally, go to this page on our website, workinginnewzealand.co.nz/free appraisal, and there's a free appraisal form. This is a free form that you can fill out. Everyone on this webinar, if you haven't filled one of those out, it will take you 10 minutes, if that, to fill this form out. It costs you nothing. There's no risk at all. It will give us the information that we need about you initially for us to decide if we can potentially help you. Like I said, we can't help everyone. So this is how we find out who we can and can't help. And if we can help you, we'll send you an email. We'll be in touch. We'll arrange a free call with you where we can talk to you about your move. And that's the first step. That's the only thing that we're asking anybody to do from this webinar. We break the move into steps. Let's find the information first. If that looks good, let's move to the next step. If that looks good, let's move to the next step. And if that looks good, let's move to the 4 steps and let's get you to New Zealand. And that's how we do this process. If you do move to that next step, then we also have a full visa assessment, and this actually involves it's much more in depth. We get more information from you. If you're a single person or if you're a family, we get all the information we need, your CVs and everything else. We run it past our visa team. They do a full report to confirm your visa options. It also involves a full consultation, either with myself or one of our other team members. That full consultation could last for about an hour. We do it on Zoom or Teams or whatever, on a time and date that suits you. And in that call, you'll get all the answers to all your questions about moving to New Zealand, and we will explain step by step the steps that you need to go through and how we help you with the steps. At the end of that call, you have all the answers to all your questions. You have a clear way forward that's easy to understand. So then we move from there. But first step, do the free appraisal. So I guess, Daryl, we've ran through things quite quickly there, and thanks for your patience there while I was doing a lot of talking. Anything anything to add, on this whole topic today of how to secure a job offer in New Zealand? Maybe things that I've talked about or things that we haven't talked about.
Well, I can sort of give feedback with regards to various people that have contacted me over the year. And certainly we've had people that have been looking for 2, 3, 4 years, and finally they land on my desk, and we've been able to contact them and give them guidance. And it really is quite a scary move. Even myself, I'm a Kiwi, but lived in the UK for a long time, came back 18 years ago. I wished I'd had a service like working in New Zealand that could have just held my hand and just put end to end, just got me to New Zealand. I had to go through the migration process anyway, but it was all done by myself, and it was hard. It was really hard.
Yeah.
And it would have just been nice just to have an expert at the end of the phone or at the end of the email where I could just ask the questions. And I always emphasize to everybody, there's no such thing as a silly question. There's just a question that you have that needs to be answered. And we've got experts, we've got the licensed immigration advisors, we've got 110 staff around the world. So it's really a case of ask those questions. We will answer them as men. And yeah, if you've got the skills and we have the shortage, then we just match the two together. And it's just as simple as that.
Yeah, and the whole thing about making the move, like I say, you and I have both lived in both countries, and it is a massive emotional move. It's a stressful move. You're changing jobs, you're changing schools. If you've got kids, you're changing countries, you're moving house, you're doing all of those stressful things all at the same time. You can't get any more stressful, and
absolutely
trying to secure a job offer on top of that. And also, most of the time, you've got to keep your own life running as it is, which is busy enough as it is, whilst trying to do these things to move to New Zealand. And you try and do this on your own, just life gets in the way. I see people all the time who say, I've been thinking of doing this for years, or I've been trying to do this for years. And it's like, well, how have you not got any further yet? And it's like, well, just been busy. Time just flies, and having people around you to help you can take some of that time pressure off. But I'm also very, very clear with people that you have to approach this move, even if you're using us to help you. You have to approach this move, unless maybe you're a truck driver. You have to approach this move as being long, difficult, and frustrating, because it is, and it can be. And the people who get frustrated, the people who ultimately give up the quickest, are the ones who think, because they're really skilled and because of this and because of that, and because New Zealand's got a shortage, they're going to get a job within 2 months of starting the process and everything's going to be great. And all of a sudden they get rejections, or they get employers ignoring them, and they go, why are they ignoring me? This is ridiculous. They get frustrated, and that negativity then spirals down, and it just comes across in everything. The people who succeed stay positive no matter how many knockbacks they get, no matter how many frustrations they come across. They keep going forward. Quite often, a lot of what we do is seeing people, our clients often, who are getting frustrated that oh, why didn't I get that job, or why did that employer ignore me, or whatever, and stuff like that, and saying, well, it is what it is. Let's move around that. Let's get past that. That's stopped for now. It doesn't mean it's stopped forever, but it's stopped for now. Let's move on to something else. It's always about getting the momentum and moving forward. And certainly a lot of what I do in my role is mentoring people through that process. We actually have a private Facebook group for our clients. It's a client only group. If you become clients, anyone watching this, where we actually invite you to talk to all of our other clients in a group. People who've already moved to New Zealand, people who are moving to New Zealand. It's one of the best things we did. Everyone can help each other. You can be surrounded by hundreds of people who've made the move, which is a massively useful tool. So what we're trying to say, I think, in this call, I'll summarize it now before I leave you with some slides for those of you who haven't been to New Zealand, or maybe those of you who haven't a missing being there, is getting a job offer in New Zealand is not easy. Okay, it is difficult. It's really difficult if you're trying to do it on your own. Only an employer can guarantee you a job offer, whether we're the employer or whether it's another employer. No one else can guarantee you a job offer except an employer. But if you want to secure that job offer, you need to put yourself in the best position to secure that job offer. You need to be able to follow instructions. You need to be able to put in the work. You need a positive attitude. That is absolutely essential. And on top of that, obviously, you need to meet all the immigration criteria that the government is constantly changing at the moment. And we've been doing this for over 20 years. We're more than happy to help as many people as there is who we come across, who we can help. We've got, as Daryl said, a large team where we can work with lots of people, which is great. And we're more than happy to help anyone on here. So one piece of advice after this call, or if you haven't done it already, use the link, fill out our free appraisal form, and get in touch with us so that we can at least take a look to see if that we can help you. So obviously, Daryl, you can maybe talk some of these slides. I don't know if you'll know where they are. These are actually slides from our staff in New Zealand, kind of showcasing a bit about the lifestyle. What would you say? Actually, I'm not going to ask you to comment on the slides, Daryl, but what would you say? How would you sum up the New Zealand lifestyle?
So the picture behind me, that's a picture of Piha, which is a beach on the west side of where I live. So I'm on the north shore of Auckland. That's an hour drive. And it's probably the busiest. I think there's 3 or 4 people on there. It's the busiest picture I've seen of people on that beach. It's one of hundreds. I literally can walk to a beach in 2 minutes. So I always describe people my week. Monday to Friday, working, coming in and throwing from working in. Friday evening, I get home, I take my work clothes off, I put t-shirt and shorts on, I walk down to the beach and I meet my family for fish and chips and a beer. That's my lifestyle. That's just a typical week.
It's simple. If I could sum up the lifestyle, say, I can only obviously comment from UK to New Zealand, but it does apply to other countries. If I was to compare the two, UK and New Zealand, I would say New Zealand is easier. 2 words, it's easier. It's easier because there's less people. It's easier because the weather's better generally. It's easier because you get a better work-life balance. And it's those simple things that you just mentioned, that whole finish work, it's still light, it's not dark outside. I can go to the beach, I can get some fish and chips, I can go and play with the kids on the sand, I can go for a swim, I can do this stuff, and guess what, it doesn't cost me any money either. It's an outdoors lifestyle, and the scenery, as you can see from some of these slides that some of our staff have taken, it's absolutely amazing. It makes me really homesick, actually. Yes, I was born in the UK, but I do actually still consider New Zealand home, to be honest. It's really weird. You fly to this country that's thousands of miles away, and pretty much immediately, first time I arrived in New Zealand ever, it felt like home. It didn't feel weird. It just went, wow, I think I'm meant to be here. And that picture there in particular, the one on the left hand side, sitting on, I don't know which extinct volcano that is in Auckland.
It's probably Mount Eden.
I was going to say Mount Eden by the looks of it, but that is a typical thing about it. Even people think about Auckland as this massive city with 1.8 million people. It's not like London, it's not like Manchester, it's not like Tokyo. It's like that. There is greenery, there is the sea, and there's the city, and it's really easy to sort of get around and everything else, and then the outdoors lifestyle as well. So I just want to sum up, everybody, fill out the free appraisal. You've got everything to gain, absolutely nothing to lose. If we can help you, we'll be in touch and let you know. Daryl, thank you so much for getting up early over in Auckland. I want to also thank everybody who's joined in tonight. There was a lot of people on this webinar, a lot of people interested. I hope you've found it useful. We've certainly enjoyed being here. And like I say, if you're serious about making the move within the next 6, 12, 18, even 24 months, fill out the appraisal. You've got everything to gain, nothing to lose. And who knows, you might actually get a one-to-one call with me, or even if you're a truck driver, a one-to-one interview with Daryl. Or a health professional, you might be talking to our health recruitment team in a few weeks' time. So lovely to see you all here. Hope it's been useful, and we will see you all soon.
Take it easy.